Hey everybody, my name's Larry G. Goldman, and I'm an old buddy of Mike's going back to our teenage years. And though I know a lot of you know him either through family or through his optometry profession and his later adult years, we started our journey into the teen years together as buddies with a couple other friends back around 1969-ish. We met when we were around 15 or 16 years old. Myself and my other buddies being middle-class suburban kids whose parents had their own businesses and were given a 1960s suburban education in the local schools. For the most part, with some exceptions. We met when we were around 15 or 16, myself and other buddies being around the same age group from middle class sections of Philly and the main line on both sides. Mike was from Havertown, Montgomery County, and a bunch of us were from Philly and Overbrook Park and sometimes Winfield. And we all used to hang out and do different activities together, but mostly we had a lot of fun because we were teenagers. And Mike was my new friend. He also had a reputation among his junior high school and high school buddies in Havertown as being a very good drummer. So when we met, I believe it was at some jam sessions in some people's basements of their parents' houses. I played bass. I also sang a little, and Mike played drums. But by the time we became friends, he was kind of phasing out his main interest in drums, and he was, just doing other things, and we would get together mostly and just go out and listen to music and stuff like that. And but most of us did play some musical instruments growing up. Some of us played guitar, Mike played drums, I played bass, other guys played keyboards, and everybody sang a little bit. So those were fun times and somewhat musical. And I'm one of the few guys out of the crowd that took a more serious interest upon going to college and then making a career of it. And I should say we loved the music of the bands that went to Woodstock, the Atlantic City Pop Festival, and the bands of that era, plus the English bands. We loved the English bands that played progressive rock, like Yes, the Moody Blues, Procol Harum, Rod Stewart, Led Zeppelin, Jethro Tull, and then there was the ones that came to Philadelphia and played at Belmont Plateau, Electric Factory, and eventually when rock concerts got large, we started to go to the Spectrum. And those were fun times. And in the summers, being teenagers, one of the things we both loved was the shore, as all of our friends did. And that meant Atlantic City, the boardwalk, and the adjoining beaches, Ventnor, Margate, and sometimes at night we go to Summers Point, where they had some really big clubs, and they'd have a bunch of great rock bands of the era. Local cover bands, but they were terrific. It sounded just like the record, sometimes even better. And sometimes they played original music too. The summer resting place for Mike and his family, of course, was their place in Ventnor. And I was an occasional guest, and I want to tell you a little story called the Cadillac story. Sometimes Mike would buy the Cadillac from his dad. And one night we went out to a couple different clubs, you know, to meet girls and dance and have a good time. And, I remember we stayed out pretty late. We went maybe to Baltimore Grill in Atlantic City and got some really late night meatball sandwiches and stuff like that. And somehow we were on our way home and Mike pulled over to the side of the road. At least I thought that's what he was doing. And slowed down and started to park. I guess he was really tired too. And but we weren't home yet. And well, he hit a telephone pole. And the next morning, after we snuck into the house, after he parked the car, and we're sitting at the breakfast table, and Mr. Soffer, he was a cool guy, and he just kind of looked at us and said, so last night, you know, anything particular interesting happen? And Mike and I looked at each other, and Mike mumbled some quick attempt at being witty and said, well, there was this one moment where a telephone pole parked in front of us and tapped the bumper. And apparently Mike's dad had gone outside, seen the Cadillac, and pulled a big chunk of wood out of the grill and said, yeah, parked too close to you, I guess, huh? And well, that was the Cadillac story. From that point on, I kind of feared coming into that house because of what happened. And Mike used to say, hey, I'm going to go out now. Larry and I are going out. And I think Mike's mom said to me the other day, yeah, you know, we asked why Larry was standing across the street. And Mike told him he's too scared to come in the house because, you know, we got in trouble. So, you know, there's a comedian once said, you remember the 60s, you really weren't there. And now it's a little later, 70s, and we used to like to go downtown. It was in the winter, not the summer. And we used to go down on the Penn Railroad train, and it would take us to 16th and JFK to the Pennsylvania Railroad Station. And from there, we would go all over town. We'd go to places like Ward's Folly and get our bell bottoms, ruffled type of shirts, and you know, different types of wardrobe that was appropriate for that time. A lot of it coming over from London. And then we'd go up to 18th and Chestnut, and we'd go to Music City. And they had tons of guitars and fun stuff. And all the musicians on Saturday from all over the city would be in there. So we'd, you know, just kind of meet people and talk to them about music. And some were professionals, some were like us, kids. But Music City always treated us really good. And then some years later, I actually worked there for a summer job. And the owner just passed away recently, but the owner's son and I are still good friends, and we talk to each other. He lives out here in California. And then eventually we'd go over to Rittenhouse Square at the end, and there was a deli near there that a friend of mine's father was the deli counter guy and part owner, and we would go in there and we'd get some corned beef sandwiches, corned beef specials, and then we'd go to the Rittenhouse Square and hang out and yeah, meet people and talk about whatever was current at that moment in time. You know, we were teenagers having fun in the winter. And then eventually we would head home and get on the train back to the main line. And the great part was, that afternoon we met 4 beautiful girls from Penn Valley. And we asked them. Mike's parents were away on vacation. Anyway, we had the whole Mike's house for the whole weekend, and we invited the girls to come over that Saturday night, and they said sure, and they gave us their phone number and their address, and they all lived in Penn Valley, so we all took that Penn train back to City Line, and they kept going, and we got off, and two of the guys went back to Mike's house, Mike and Denny, and Fikely, James Fikely, and myself, we went to pick up his car in Overbrook Park because his mother was getting home soon. And we decided we were going to go up to Penn Valley and pick up the girls with his car. And his mom had a really cool red Le Mans with a black top. So we drove over, we picked up the girls, we went back to Mike's house, and we put on some music and got some food, and I think we got a pizza or something like that. And we danced, we had a lot of fun. Next thing we knew, it was basically getting towards midnight. And the girls had to go home. They were unchaperoned. And they had to be home by midnight. And so we were getting ready to take them home, and somebody looked outside and said, "Hey guys, it's snowing." And actually it was a blizzard. I can't believe we didn't even notice it. We were having such a good time for a bunch of hours, but now there was a couple inches on the ground, and it was cold, and the snow was coming down, cats and dogs, as we used to say. So now, prior to leaving, someone looked out the window and said, "Hey, there's a blizzard going on outside." And Mike went into commander mode. And he says, "Hey Larry, why don't you take Denny and the girls and take the girls home, and while you're on your way, make sure you have Wibbage, WIBG radio, our favorite station at the time, on the radio, and turn it up. We'll make a surprise for you." So didn't know what that was about, but sure. And we go outside, and we put WIBG on the radio, and of course they had some great music playing, and we're all kind of singing along, and it's very few cars on the road, and we're kind of driving in the main line heading towards Penn Valley, which is kind of an up and down area. And I should give you a little background. One of the guys, Jimmy Fikely, whose car we were in, that I was driving because he stayed back there with Mike, is kind of a real entertainer fellow. And he's kind of a cross between Tom Hanks and Elvis Presley, if you can imagine. And he had the curled up lip like Elvis, and he had that sense of humor that Tom Hanks had, like when he played in the movie Big. He was really funny. And Jimmy Fikely was like that. And sometimes he would really get going, and we nicknamed him High Five for Fikely. High Five. And High Five would just make people laugh. He was so funny. And we're driving along in this winter storm. We can't see too much, but all of a sudden the DJ comes on the radio, and he says, "We got a special announcement. We got Mike on the phone here." And we're going, "Mike, what?" And all of a sudden there's a little silence, And we shut up and we listened to the DJ tell us that Mike is on the phone and telling us that on this very cold and snowy night, he had someone very, very special to make the evening more fun. And he's directly from his hometown in Havertown, Mike's home in Havertown. We got Hi-Fi to entertain you. Denny and I knew right away who that was. It was Hi-Fi. And he was just about to start his little show. This could have been a professional skit on Saturday Night Live. But SNL had yet to be invented, and Mike and Fikely were ahead of the time. You know, with the exception of maybe Cheech and Chong. And we were laughing out loud when we heard that. The silence ended and the DJ introduced the radio audience. Folks, here's Hi-Fi with something for you listeners. Bada boom. Jimmy's voice came over the radio. I got a 1 for the money, 2 for the show, a 3 to get ready, now go cat go. And he launched into this whole Elvis Presley routine, blue suede shoes and you know, a couple of the other tunes. And we're in the car driving in a blizzard. Luckily we had good snow tires because Fikely's mother was the manager of Marblatt Tires, so we had pretty good brand new snow tires. But we're driving and it's like this in Penn Valley, and we're going about 30 miles an hour, which in a couple inches of snow is fast. And we're laughing and Jimmy's singing, and all of a sudden the girl in the back seat, one of the 4 girls, says, "Turn right!" And I just turned right, like instinctively, forgetting that I was in snow. And the red Le Mans car starts spinning 360 into a circle. And you know, in the rolling hills of Penn Valley, we're at the summit of a hill and we're on a snowy road, and I just saw a telephone pole headed our way. I don't know what it is with us and telephone poles, but I said, "Look out, folks, here comes Ma Bell." And we skidded right into it. And that poor car, who had a beautiful Indian beak nose, now had it. That's not the actual car. That's some pictures I got off the internet to demonstrate, but it inverted like it had a really bad nose job by a cheap surgeon. Oh my God, it was awful. But we were kids, nobody got hurt, the girls got out, they only lived a block away, they walked home. Denny and I went out, checked the car out. It was nothing that made it undrivable, it just looked pretty horrible. And I spent the next year at a part-time job paying Mrs. Fikely the deductible. And those were the days, my friend. I thought they'd never end. Oh, Mike, the fun-loving Mike, I miss you, pal. We'll have to catch up some other time. Thank you, folks. I hope you enjoyed the 2 telephone pole stories. And just remember, we were all kids once. And Mike was a good kid. We were all good kids. We just had a little bit too much fun. Ciao. And Mike will catch up some other time.